A couple things. First and foremost, the two things. Sports world and the media world obviously lost somebody who was pretty talented, widely respected, and well known by many in the sense of what he did professionally. And Stuart Scott, I don't pretend to have known him personally other than to have met him a couple of times. But I had great respect for him and how he went about his business and the not only the entertaining value that he brought, but the knowledge value that he brought. So our sympathy is with his family. Our empathy is with his family, not just our sympathy. And all his colleagues and friends at a time. And I think that what you'll see now is that speech that he gave at the ESPYs will probably become the next version of, or is capable of becoming the next version of what Jim Valvano's speech was. And the Jim Valvano speech is one where people just stop what they're doing when that comes on. And it's raised so much money for cancer awareness. And I would imagine Stuart's words are going to be much the same, over the next few decades. And I hope that they are. On a brighter note, Bloomington welcomes Charlie Bykoff to the area. Congratulations on that. And just like my three kids, the hope and prayer is that they look more like their mother than their father. And I've worked that out, so hopefully you work that out as well. As far as Michigan State and where we stand, I think that they are playing at an extremely high level, especially defensively. And certainly their offense has gotten a lot of attention because the way they shoot the three and they can play inside out, I mean, they really have the ingredients of a very special team. And I know they've had their injuries in situations like that, sicknesses that they've had to deal with. But when they're clicking, they're really, really good. But as good as their offense is, their defense is incredibly impressive. They make it very, very hard to find space on the court. They're very good defending the pick and roll. They're very physical inside. And their help defense is as good as that I've seen. And we've played some really good defensive teams this year. And certainly we need that to help us as we go into this game. But they really don't give you much. And so our keys are not going to be to complicate it. It's to keep it as simple as possible. But we've got to do those simple things that are hard things better. We've got to screen better. We've got to pass the ball even quicker. Certainly when there's an opportunity for transition, we've got to take it. At the same time, their break is outstanding, so we've got to get back. But we've got to draw a crowd and make the pass, not be in a situation where we're driving it into a crowd and trying to make a play. They're too good at challenging shots. They want you inside that two-point line where they can get great shot challenges and let their help defense come alive. So we've got to be very, very efficient. And inside of the game, it's a game last year where we went there, we had far too many turnovers. After we got up, we gave them too many easy chances to score. And the one thing that really helped us the other night is, and it helped us in the Butler game, somewhat in the Georgetown game till the end, and then not at all in the Louisville game, is our mental toughness, in the heart of the game. In that second half when that game is up for grabs, and how do you keep momentum, get momentum back, hold on to it, stem the tide, so to speak. And that takes a lot of work because it's mental more than it is physical. And our guys are continuing to learn that. If we're trying to harp on anything right now through the video and in situations of practice, it's to understand that and understand the value of the possession. And we certainly want to play fast, and I enjoy watching this team on offense a lot of times. But at the same time, we've really got to make sure we understand that the ball has got to go through the paint, whether on the post-up or the drive. It's got to be reversed. And we don't need to take the first shot that we see. We need to make sure we're breaking down the defense. Now, it's going to be easier said than done against Michigan State because there's really nothing that they haven't seen. They've dealt with everything. They've dealt with all the zones. They've dealt with all the switching. They've dealt with all the traps. I mean, they've played a conglomerate of teams that have given them everything. So we just got to be very, very efficient in this game. And our respect level for them is enormous. It's always a different challenge for me personally. With Tom, it's been this way for a long time. He is as close a friend as I could possibly have. And there's not enough adjectives to describe him to me personally. The biggest thing to me is every time I think my respect or admiration can't get any higher for him, well, in turn it does. Something comes up, something's said, and all of a sudden, you just see the sides of him that are so incredible. He's a pure Hall of Fame coach. It's just a matter of when he's up for the ballot and when that time comes. He's got a tremendous staff. Certainly Dane made his mark as a coach, just like he made his mark at Indiana. Dwayne Stevens worked for me in my first 4 years at Marquette. Mike Garland I worked with. Their strength program, Mike Vorkovich, Dave Pruder, the whole group, Dr. Jeff Kovan. I mean, that's an extended family to me. And it's always hard because there's only a couple times each year I don't want to see him be successful. And other than that, I want to see him always be successful. But tomorrow night's one of those, and we need to come in with an incredibly focused mindset and game plan and stay to it and weather every storm that we see inside of the game and play to the best of our ability tomorrow. Well, it's their help. It's the elbow block theory that he's employed since basically our first year. Maybe the second year is when we really started to spend a lot of time on that. But he just does a great job of taking your elbows. You know, there's always good coverage there. They help on the ball and they recover quick to the shooters. And the game's got to be in movement. If you play a game where you're just standing and waiting for them to make a mistake, that's not going to happen. They don't make many mistakes when you play into their hands that way. The game has got to move. That's why the simplicity of ball movement, and I say it's simple, it's not. It's easier said than done, but the ball movement, the screening, the cutting, you know, the basics of basketball have really got to be in effect. And then there's certain things that we have to find, are they there, you know, when we get into the game? You know, can we take advantage of this? Can we take advantage of that? So there's a lot of maneuvering once you're in the game, but the bottom line becomes you have to have great body movement. And the ball moving is certainly one thing, but the bodies have got to move. And they've got to move through screens, and they've got to move through hard, sharp scoring cuts. Even when it's not set up for you and you make a backdoor cut or you make a back cut or you set a screen, you've got to set it with efficiency because, again, he's got a lot of like defenders. He's got a lot of guys that can do a lot of things, and he's got guys who have played a lot of minutes now. I mean, when you look at their experience with Dawson and Costello's played since he was a freshman, and Valentine's now a veteran, and Trice is a 4-year player that's got nothing but better. Forbes is new to them, but he's not new to college basketball. I mean, Schilling now got a lot of experience last year. They've got tremendous experience, so they're not going to make many mistakes defensively.
Tom, the ability to win on the road is always tough in the conference, but you got that win in your first opportunity. How much does something like that help this game and then, you know, the rest of the season?
Well, I don't think there's any question that it validates to them, you know, that they can go on the road, that they can follow a plan, that they can trust one another on the court, that they can move the ball, that they can weather storms, that they can, and at the same time come back home and learn that there was all kinds of mistakes we made. And I think that's the key to a team. The key to the team is no matter what happens in that result, and especially when you win, it becomes even harder. Because when you win, you lose sight sometimes as a player of how hard it was to get that win. And you've got to make sure that you point that out. And there's a growth process in it. Young players are constantly, okay, unless it's rare, all right, are constantly going to validate their game and their impact based on how many points they're scoring. And you've got to really help them through that to see that there's so many things to it. There's so many things that impact the win, that impact the game. And there's so many different ways. When we're watching film, we're looking, okay, how many more points could we have scored if we'd have done this, if we'd have done that? And it's not about slowing the game down for us. It's about speeding it up, but speeding it up with efficiency. So I think when you have the experience, they'll be able to fall back on that, okay? But the bottom line is, are they improving from it? And that's what we've got to continue to hold to.
You talked too about, I guess, going back to the three-point shooting, about playing through the paint, getting the ball through the paint, whether it's on a post-up, a drive, that kind of thing. How equipped is this team to, I guess, get the ball into the paint and then maybe back out of it in any way possible?
Well, I don't know if we're real good at that yet. And I think Michigan State does a great job of being physical in the paint. And I remember back to Cody's first Big Ten game at Michigan State and what he learned inside of that game, and all the things that we had done early on in that year weren't in the games, even the Kentucky win, things of that nature weren't close to the physicality that he dealt with in that game. And Cody was such a quick learner. He was able to turn around 2-3 days later. We beat Ohio State. But it's a different deal. They're very, very hard. You cannot lose your spirit and get discouraged in a game against Michigan State because you've got to keep playing. They're going to take a lot of things away, and that's why the movement and the concepts become more important than the plays. Now, getting the ball into the paint and back out is huge. We've gotten good at that, but there's times we get tunnel vision down the rim. And we've got to make sure that when we see one defender or we see an open path to the rim that we take it. And if not, that means there's help, somebody's open. And so those become things that you've got to continue, because players it's not a selfishness of just trying, you can correct that pretty quick, just take them out of the game. But it's more, okay, I can do this, and it's not quite that way when you've got an efficient team. When you only have 2 or 3 offensive players on your team on the court at one time that can make plays, now that's another story. Last year we had a lot of that. They did a great job of boxing Yogi in last year because there weren't enough places for him to go. And it's almost like when we watch that film, I'm not sure we want to show that film, any of those films last year, because it was so easy for them to guard us based on where we kept the ball, because they didn't have to guard the corners and the wings with the efficiency. Now they do. So now the more that you get into the paint, that should create more kickouts. And that's where we've got to get threes, or the next pass and the next pass after that. But as far as going inside of the post, I think we've got to be able to read the defense. Hunter's improving at that, but it's still an area that he's got to get better at. But we want Hunter to be able to score quickly. We want him to be able to trust his moves. And the same thing with Emmett. And at the same time, we've got to find more ways to post the guards.
Do you feel like the Nebraska game maybe made this group maybe a little more mindful of how to create offense through defense, and maybe just especially how important that is on the road?
Well, it just validates how important it is, and we've had moments of it, certainly. But they've got to continue to understand. And I think when you can score, you lose sight. The whole trading baskets part doesn't register as much. So in answer to your question, I think that part of it registers a little bit, because we got going in the second half, all right, and they were scoring. We were scoring some, but they were scoring. Then all of a sudden, we weren't scoring as much, and they got momentum because we didn't get momentum back, and then we got it certainly later in the game. But we don't want to be in those situations. We got to be harder to score against more often, and we have. Every game we can look at it. This is a game right here. There's a lot of matchup issues for us in this game. There's not a lot of like-sized, okay, we can guard him with him and guard him with him. We can't do a lot of that, but we couldn't do it against Nebraska. So you've got to have great team defense. You're going to have a guy like Walter Pitchford that's 6'10", 6'11", and you're going to be guarding with a guard at times, because that's just the way that it is. So what you want the players to understand is the old adage that it's not about the matchup or the mismatch. It's about the open shot or the open driving lane. You don't want to give those up. So with us, we've got to do the hard things better. We got to keep coming. We get hit on a screen, we got to keep coming. If we don't keep coming when Michigan State hits you, they're going to score, okay? You got to keep being after it. And we can point to players on film sometimes that don't want to go through that fight. We'll point that out in other teams. They don't look like they want to be in that fight. And there's times we can show our guys they don't necessarily want to be in that fight. And what happens is sometimes you grow out of it, okay, and you have a will, you have an intent, you have a definitive desire to compete. Well, you get hit or somebody scores and you get disappointed. Well, that's worse, because you got to play through your disappointment. And you're going to get disappointed every possession if you don't keep coming, okay? And the bottom line on the offensive end, let's just keep moving the ball. Let's just keep it in rotation. Well, defensively, you want to keep it out of rotation. You want to keep fighting through those screens so you don't have to be in an overhelp situation. That's what we've got to continue to grow through. That's a youth thing, but it's also an experience thing, okay? Because the youth part of it is they get disappointed. The experience part of it is they just got to keep going through these hard, tough battles time and time again to get it understood. It takes time. Yeah, it takes time. Guys get disappointed when shots aren't going. And I think that's universal. That's not anything different with us. And we have some guys who can make shots, but the other team knows it too. So I think that's where the efficiency, there's so much details that go into not only defense, but to scoring. It's not let's just come down, throw the ball, make a shot. Okay, that's not what the defense is going to give you. It is the setups. It is playing off how you're being played by your man, reading where the ball is at, playing off your man. It is the setups for the back cuts. It's finishing a cut. It's setting your man up and coming off the screen and being ready to shoot because there's only going to be just a wee bit of daylight on that screen. It's understanding personnel. It's not driving and trying to shoot over a guy that's 6'5", 6'6", okay? It's really realizing, okay, where's the ball screen effective? Where's the ball screen not as effective? You know, and we're kind of growing into that, you know, because our older guys are a little more explosive with the ball. Look at the jump Troy has made, right? He's gotten so much more explosive with the ball. We had a situation in the Nebraska game where he got the ball, I think, at the 6 or 7 second mark in the first half. All right, came off a ball screen, finished with 1 second to go because he had the presence of mind to wait for his screen. Okay, that comes through just rapid and repetitions of drills, of breakdowns to get to the point where you don't rush it, you wait. Because that split second or second that you wait makes all the difference in the world for you to be effective and finish. So those things take time. And whether you're a young player or an older player, you've got to keep making sure you're staying with that, just like you've got to work on your defensive stance, your defensive slides, your blockouts, the whole thing.
Tom, you win at Nebraska, they were considered, you know, maybe a potential preseason favorite, Big Ten. Michigan State's lost at home, Ohio State's lost. Do you see this thing, maybe with the exception of Wisconsin, in terms of the Big Ten, wide open, that if you guys can win at Minnesota, maybe you guys can really contend in anybody?
I don't look at it that way. I've thought, well, I mean, I take that back. I've looked at it from the beginning of the year like it's wide open. Why wouldn't you? Okay? You know, the things are done on paper, things are done on experience, predictions are made. That's not what coaches do. Okay? You might talk about it once in a while because you have to inside of the media, but you don't go into any game not expecting that you're not going to win it and trying to give your team that kind of plan. So I don't view it that way. And I think there's a lot of great teams in this league. I think it'd be a disservice to not think that there's a lot of really good teams in this league. Penn State was 12-1 going into the Big Ten, right? I mean, it's a tough league. So everything that you do, you've got to make sure that you're better at the end of every day and getting ready for that next game. And as cliche-ish as that is, that's the truth. That is the truth. Now, the coaches start jumping ahead, and I know players watch other games at home. I don't watch a lot of other games, and I watch enough here that I don't really – I'll watch my friends some, you know, here and there, watch the guys that we've had that are in the NBA if I catch it, watch some football here and there, but you're spending so much time on preparing for the game. You know, it's like a marathon for blue bloods at my house, okay? Joni and Riley are always watching blue bloods. I know more about blue bloods in New York City police and law than I ever thought I would. So, like, if I get home late at night and they're watching that, I sit there and watch that with them, right? But to me, it's really staying as locked in as you can be to what your team is doing, what your team can do in the short term, building it for the long term, and knowing exactly what you've got to have to win that particular game.
I guess to talk about a little bit about what Kim was talking about with controlling what you can control. And I think I asked about this after the Nebraska game, but you only made 7 threes in that game.
Think about what you said. We only made 7 threes. Last year we averaged 5.
Well,
So.
but I guess in digesting that game a little bit, what continued to work offensively when you guys were able to answer runs and things like that without the 3-point shot that maybe built that?
The shot chart had a lot of dots all over it. And then in the Georgetown game, there were far too many from beyond the 3-point line. And not that it was too many threes, because I'm not of the believer we're going to take too many threes. I'm a believer that it's got to go through the paint. We've got to have lane scoring. When you look at our shot chart in the Georgetown game, Georgetown had a tremendous amount of points at the rim, okay, and shots at the rim. And in our game against Nebraska, we had a very good mix. You know, there was some mid-range, there was at the rim, there were the threes. We were using all sides of the court. We were scoring some in transition. And we got some in the post. It was just a very good mix. I don't know if I would ever look at it and say there has to be a balance. But you got to play to your strengths, and you got to play to what the defense is giving you. But it can't be so different. I mean, I think we had 38 points in the paint. Is that right? How many points did we score in the game? 73? It was 70. Okay. So to me, that's good, right? I mean, that's good. You can't have a game like in Georgetown where it's double the amount of points in the paint for the other team and think that you're going to win. So again, to me, the number one thing we have to go into is how do we get the penetration? And that's one thing that Michigan State does a great job at trying to take away. So we're going to have to be creative in some areas, but a lot more simplified in others to be able to get that and then get those inside-out type of threes that we need.